Da 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 da! What's my good chair? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and I'm going to have to say I'm very proud of myself this week because it has been a week. Let me just get those notifications out of the way. It has been a week now that I have been going at 9 p.m., an earlier schedule than I have been doing. And what's more importantly, it's a regular schedule. I was always consistent every single day I showed up, right? I've been doing that for years, just in showing up every single day, but not always consistent in the way of what time I showed up, only consistent that I did show up every day. So you never knew when I was going to pop in. And then in those procrastinations, you leave it till the last minute. You find you're dozing at the desk at midnight and you're going, okay, right now we need to bring some change into our life. A little bit more consistency in the way of what time we're going to show up. Going to show up, right? Okay, it's the last of the energy of the day still, but it's not the last of it. And that was the problem for me, dozing at my desk, like I said, at like quarter to 12, knowing that your consistency, you're going to show up tonight, and you're still talking yourself into it. And I had to do that for myself. Oh my goodness, it was a long one, that one, to learn, just in showing up. A lot of it is in, you don't have the confidence, the way you look. Then you don't have the confidence in the topics that you want to talk about. And then you find that the topics that you want to talk about are so unique that it drums up a different kind of confidence. Confidence that's mixed with bravery and stepping out of yourself, and so it makes sense for me that I'm in motivation and inspiration because that's what I need to be motivated, and I am motivated in lots of different ways, right? And it's just not in those compulsive coping mechanism kind of ways. We're talking healthy ways, right? We're getting it out of our system, or we're keeping ourselves busy, or keeping ourselves grounded, keeping ourselves interested, but we're doing it in unique ways, right? For each one of us differently. Hi, Melvin. How are you doing this week? I can even see it all through my chat. That's nice of you to say, Melvin. That's nice of you to say. That makes me feel good because lots of times I just come in and I am chattering, but I'm chattering by myself. So I'm just grateful that you just kind of pop in and hang out with me. But then you throw out those nice compliments, right? And again, that's what helps to build the confidence, right? It all takes time. And I'm a big believer in baby steps. Hell, I've been here on YouTube for ten years, but it's 10 years of practicing a craft that I was born to but unfamiliar with. It was not content that ever came across my path. It wasn't something that I was inheriting from one generation to the next, which in actuality I was, but in the lessons and in the understandings that we naturally passed down from one generation to the next. It just was not. I just happened onto. I just recognized it, which is, a way I think that a bigger part of the population of the world, they're gonna happen on to it too, because this age of AI learning is all about the information that we're curious about, right? It's all information, and it's going to be better served to us. And there's going to come a time that the experience that I'm going through and that lots of others have gone through is just going to be the cool thing, right? It's just going to be just natural, and it will be something unique and comfortable and fun and interesting and what's the word I'm looking for? Instilled, like taken care of and groomed and mentored on and just appreciated for what it is, right? I'm not sure if we're quite there yet, but isn't it interesting that people are becoming more comfortable in expressing themselves, and that is in just showing up. Just show up, no matter, like, right, if I had shown up this way 10 years ago, man, that would have been the last time you guys seen me. I would have shut it down so fast. But as you move forward, you're just like, oh my goodness, really? And then it's just a matter of digesting it and getting comfortable with, in the end, information, right? But we have to be so careful. I heard a good quote today about discernment, that we really have to pay attention, right? We have to stay connected, we have to keep moving, but we have to do it in a way where we're really feeling out each other. Just like what Melvin said, you always have good cheers, Cindy. I can even see it through all your chattering. That's what I'm talking about. That's the way that we're going to move, by understanding that that maybe we're not in it all alone. And that's a little bit of, what did I say, courageousness, not courageousness, but paying that attention and and feeding off of that, right? Because that's just, I don't know, for you guys, being sensitive that I am and not getting lots of compliments, that's just like candy shop stuff to me, right? And for lots of people, they don't even give that a consideration. They don't even think, oh my goodness, was that ever nice? Or it's just something that scrolled down in the comments. But then again, I understand sometimes, people got a gazillion people in their lives, and that is moving really fast. But if, as the creator, every once in a while, we could take a look and recognize that. And for myself too, I have to remind myself that it's this is what helps to make sure that I'm showing up, right? And, in just showing up, you get a little bit better. Now I'm showing up at 9 o'clock at night, where I was doing it at 5 to 12, sometimes falling asleep at my desk and waking up at 12:30 and going, oh my goodness, go to bed. And you're going, oh, but you haven't done your live yet. And then stumbling into your live, and then try bring some good energy to that, right? And maybe it's in taking what I need first. I like to think of it as that, you know. Um, I'm one of those people, you can't help those without helping yourself. It's that half cup mentality. I want to be a full, overflowing, anything, all that froth, all that goody beer stuff going over the sides of the mugs. That's what you give away. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. But leave our mugs full, right? And, it's how I took my lessons in. And sometimes that adds into what I was saying. I move in lots of different ways. Maybe it's one of those idealisms that help me to keep on the path that I'm doing. Lots of it is self-discipline. Sometimes it's no discipline at all, and then there's that disappointment and guilt that we deal with. But I'm only a human, and I'm only creating the best human being I possibly can, and I want to enjoy the landscapes. And I think, in finding that balance of what Cindy loves, right? That person that I am, and those other parts of me. I'm very grateful because I know that's not always a privilege in that, but it's finding the commonalities. What do you love, and what do those other parts to make the whole? Just think it's absolutely amazing, and then just stay with that. I'm just doing this because I still have lots of interests. But that just goes to show for me in the way of my thinking, right? It just means I've been around for a very long time. So, you have to move on. It's change, right? And that's the truth. The experiences, we all have experiences in our life that add on to their plates of what we understand. And the thing is, some people, they get stuck in that one experience. And what comes to my mind just that second when I was saying that, I'm thinking of that high school student who dreamed of being a movie star or an actor, or just somebody who just wants to get out of that small town and live that busy big city life. And I look at it like, that's a dream, right? But unless you move towards that, it's always going to be a dream. So you have more of a chance if you're just moving in the baby steps of achieving that dreams than somebody who just shuts it down, just saying, oh, that'll never be for me, right? And it might not ever manifest, right? Even what I'm doing, it might not move in a direction that I want it to move into. Might move into a better direction, or it might not move in any direction at all, or it just might be right. But you don't know unless you just keep moving, and that's in the consistency, right? The consistency of just showing up. And then once you have that habit down packed, right? Maybe you can, right, feel good about yourself that you're not procrastinating and giving the lust of your energy was that which at that point is zero, and offering that out to the world, right? Come in a little bit earlier. Let's just see about 9 o'clock. I was actually thinking in the afternoon I could go in the afternoon and then have my evenings to go for early walks and be home before dark and stuff. And it would also help in the reflection. We're still on that in my glasses when I do my lives from the lighting, right? So that would resolve that, because if I did it during the day, then I wouldn't need all this lighting, right? And maybe I wouldn't have that issue. I put the cover. I tried a whole bunch of different things, you guys. Whole bunch of different things. I have a couple more ideas. Just the right moment, like this one. What I just said is changing my timings of my lives, but pretty soon it's going to be dark. Oh my goodness. right? My alarm's going to go off in the morning and it's going to feel like it's the middle of the night. It takes me a couple of weeks to really get comfortable to get up at that time of the morning, because again, those are one of my habits that help me in staying consistent, right? And they're just small things, silly things, but routine makes a difference. For somebody like me that doesn't have a lot of routine, any little bit of routine helps. Okay, you guys, let's just grab a card here. If you've never hung out with us before, these are 54 powerful words, just powerful words. We're just going to grab a card, grab a word. I'll just go into it for a couple of minutes, a different perspective. Uh, um, Maybe a perception, maybe something I'd never considered before. Maybe it's just an experience I had. Maybe I'll go blank. You never know. You never know. Okay, you guys, here we go. I'm going to go with this card. Oh, I love this card. This is something that we don't do enough. I do this, and it makes me realize how much I really miss in what's going on in my surroundings. You guys, can you see that? I haven't pulled this card before, I don't think. Spectator, spectator. Never be so impatient that you miss the lesson in someone else's experience. What I was saying, it was one of those things that I grew up with, because nobody wanted to hang out with me. Anytime I was around somebody, it was always seemed to be issues and stuff. I didn't understand then, like I understand a little bit better now. But yeah, so I spent a lot of time on my own, a little adventure, a little Pippi Longstockings, I refer to myself as. And, I created my own adventures. But there's a lot of times when you're lazy or tired, or you're actually hurt and depressed, and you just kind of want to have that ambiance of dark and dreary and sad and be in those emotions, right? I reveled in those emotions, right? It was an excuse to have those kind of a feelings come out, and it be acceptable in a way, because it was a legitimate hurt or disappointment or something. But I loved being in those emotions. Now, did I love the situations that they put me in? No, but sometimes, like I said, we need to get those emotions out because they've been building for a long time. Nothing in reality is ever a surprise, a true surprise. We just, like I said, don't pay attention, and we just zone out. Or in the back of our minds, just say, oh, if I don't look at it, it won't be realized. Right? So, it's a matter of paying attention and being a spectator, right? It doesn't mean being a student, right? Being a spectator only means being present, right? It just means to listen, to smell, to look, to feel, like the whole the whole package, right? And you'd be so amazed at the realizations and the experiences that we can have in that, even in understanding somebody else. Because lots of times we jump into, because right, we like people, We want to belong. We want to be included, right? But sometimes out of that necessity and then in that codependency of I can't be alone, that we'll just cling on to whoever or whatever, right? And then that's where the problems can arise because we don't know these characters. We only know that they're just fulfilling that one need of not being able to want to be alone, right? And then the next thing you know, because they have overpowering personalities, or they read you just as well as you start to read them, and they get to know your quirks and your weaknesses and your strengths, and they play all that, right? And they look for allies within your community and family. Oh my goodness. I watched too many of those CIA interview shows and stuff. But this is the way hypervigilance makes you think, right? Because you're looking out for your safety all the time. The most important thing in the whole world is Cindy, right? Just like the most important thing in the world for you is you, and that's the way it should be. But it doesn't mean we should be, right? And, sometimes if we just stand back, we could realize why we're feeling like we need to do that is because we jumped into these relationships, right? And, or even acquaintances or regulars, that we get too comfortable in that, and then we're not paying attention anymore, and then that's when the problems can arise, right? Nobody's perfect, right? Nobody's perfect. And like I said, sometimes we'd like to think that things are a surprise, but in the end, right, being hypervigilant, highly sensitive, we catch on pretty early and pretty fast, but because of that need to belong and people to like us and stuff, right? We tolerate it, a little bit more than what we should. But not everybody does that. Not everybody has that trait, right? But they have some kind of gift in their experiences that they can offer up. But unless we pay unless we pay attention in our experiences, we're not going to pick up anything. That's why lots of times, and he says, I'm really bad with names. I'm really bad with phone numbers. I just have to drill it into my head and I'll get it wrong. Drill it into my head and I get it wrong. Right? But it is in the repetitiveness that it gets better that way. Right? But I pay attention to my own experiences just as much as I pay attention to other people's experiences. And probably right now I probably do it more than the other way around, right? And these are skills that I'm picking up along the way, but I'm picking them up through experiences where I was utilizing them anyway. I just didn't know what I was doing with them, right? Okay, spectator. That was kind of a funny way to come at that word, but sometimes if we don't jump into things, if we just kind of pay attention, if we just become little wallflowers, if we can, right, just be the listener, or just sit there and nod your head, because you need to know in making your decisions, even in your everyday day to day, sometimes your moment to moment in the crazy town world that we live in, that we need to have those answers ASAP, right? But we have to do it in a way that we can actually feel each other out, right? Before we actually jump into something that we can't jump out of. And that's the truth. Okay, what did I say here? Spectator, never be so impatient that you miss the lesson in someone else's experience. Right? Spend more time paying attention, right? Listening, feeling, right? Yeah. I'm that one, right? I see a microphone, I'm grabbing it, right? Don't invite me to your wedding if you're not gonna make me the MC. Because I'll make myself the MC. That's not true. I'm happy to sit at my guest table. Don't let that stop you from inviting me to your wedding. Okay, you guys, I'm tired. I am going to call it an evening. Everybody, have a great night. If you want to pop in on Sunday night for Chatters Live, it's a show that I've been doing for years and years on Sunday night, 7:30 Central. I have a great crew, right? They would love to have more company join in, and I'm a true believer. If you popped in and just said hi, you would be enveloped and you would be just as comfortable as they are. They're pretty comfortable now. We've been at this for a very long time. But if not, we'll see you on Monday, okay? Have a great night. Thank you, everybody, for popping in.